So basically we are going to build a project in Java. Now, see, it's not about how big your project is or how complex your project is. It's all about understanding how do you think when you make a project. Okay, it's all about thinking. It's all about working on something. Okay, so we are going to build a project, and this will be a project based on a product. So how do you manage a product? Now, basically, in my office, there are so many things. In fact, when I used to work alone at my home or at my office, I had a small team. Okay, so I was only one, and then someone used to be there to manage everything. Especially Harsh was there. And now, since we got a good office, we got lot of machines in the office now for different purpose, for some for development, some for videos, some for editing, and some used by the admin team, right? So there are so many things. In fact, I wanted to show you the entire walkthrough of my office and so many things. What happens, at this point now, there are certain things in my office which we use regularly. Example, the laptops, the sound system, the AC remote. These are frequently used things, right? But let's say there are certain things which we don't use often. Example, cables, the C2C cable, HDMI cables. There are one or two laptops which are lying in the drawer, which I use sometime, depending if I want to travel somewhere, I want to carry a lightweight laptop. If we want to do some testing of some software, some service, we use a different machine there, right? And those are there in the drawer. Now, what happens is the moment I need something, I will ask Harsh, hey Harsh, I need that particular thing. And then it take normally 10-15 minutes for Harsh to search in the end, all the drawers where that thing went. And I thought, let's solve the problem. Okay, so Harsh, are we solving your problem today?
Yeah.
So basically, let's create an application, a console-based application, because we have not learned the GUI or web development till this point. So let's create a console-based application where we'll try to track the product. So where that product exactly is it in the drawer? Is it on the table? And we can basically search a product where it is. We can basically search for a particular type of product. Let's say I want to search the laptops in the office, or in that particular drawer, what other things are there. So we want to know, and let me know if it happens with you as well at your home. Before my marriage, I used to keep things here, there, and then I used to find it very easily. But after I got married, now everything at my home is that exact place. Nail cutter should be here. The clothes should be here, right? And then since they are properly organized, now I find things difficult to find. Yeah, so let me know if it happens with you as well. So that's what we are going to do in this session. So what exactly we are trying to build here. So let me share my screen, okay? I just need to log into okay. So basically we are going to build a product management application. Now in this application, what we want to manage is products, right? Now, let's say if a client comes to you by saying, okay, I want an application to manage the products. Now what you will do? So basically you will have something like this, right? Okay, let me just hold on a minute. Okay, so if a user comes to you by saying, okay, I want a product-based application, right? Now, what you do is, especially in language like Java, and when you are working with database concepts, you need to basically create entities. Now, what are entities? If you heard about Java, everything in Java is object, right? So if you want to imagine something, always imagine them in terms of object. Now, if we talk about a product, even product is an object, right? So a product will have certain things. So example, if I talk about a product here, now this is one of my entity product. Yeah, this is my entity basically. Okay, let me just write in the bracket. This is my entity, right? And for this entity, of course, every object or the entity will have some properties. Of course, it will also have behavior. Example, if you talk about your computer, that behaves some way, right? In the same way, if we talk about, let's say something like a camera also behaves. But it also has a property, right? So if we talk about a product, it will have certain properties. Now, what properties I want? Of course, we can have different properties to a product. But just to classify for this particular example, let's say we have a name for a product. So a product will have a name. A product will have a type of product. Let's say if we talk about my machines, those are computers, right? The Mac Studio, which I'm using here, is a computer. If we talk about cables, the type C cable, that's a cable, right? We can also have something like a mouse. Example, if I'm using this particular mouse here, which is Apple mouse. Now this is a mouse. Yeah. So that's a type. Next we can have is the place where it is stored. Okay. So example, if I want to find something, I want to find where is the Asus laptop, Asus VivoBook. Basically, that's one of my old machine which I was using, but it is now used for the development purpose. So if I want to find where that machine is, I should be able to find it, right? It can be on different tables, it can be in different drawers. So I need a place. And also, I also want a warranty. This is the problem which you face when you have multiple devices. When you have only one or two devices with you, you actually remember, okay, for this particular mobile phone, I have this warranty. For this particular laptop, I have this warranty. But let's say if I have so many machines in my office, I want to know if I go for a product, I want to know the warranty of it so that I can claim it. What if the laptop is not working? At least I will know if it's under warranty or not. Okay. We can also have color. We can also have the owner who owns that particular product, right? Yeah, makes sense, right? We can have all these properties. But just to keep it simple, let's work with this 4, and then you can also mention, when you do this project, you can also add some extra things to it. So that's my entity, right? Okay, now if you want to implement this in programming, how will you do it? So let's get back to our code. This is our coding screen, right? And in this particular coding screen, what we're going to do is, we will write the code so that you can achieve the thing. You can manage the products, right? Okay, so what I will do is, I will go back here, and this is the IDE which I'm using. And one of the questions which I got yesterday was about which IDE to use. And the thing is, you can use any particular IDE which you want. You want to use IntelliJ, that's your choice, IntelliJ IDEA. You can use Eclipse, you can use NetBeans, you can use VS Code, your choice. Okay, IDE is not something which you should stick to. I use different IDEs on different machines. If I want to make a YouTube video, I normally go for VS Code because that's very lightweight and most of you are already using it. So if I want to build a project, normally I use IntelliJ IDEA to build a project because it gives you different features. Yeah. And so again, you can use any IDE. So what I will do now is, I got a project which is product demo, and in this I have this SRC file which is empty at this point. Let's create our first file, and this will be a file of main. Now why it is main is because the execution will start from this particular class. And of course, when I say this is a main class, I also need a main method because I want to start the execution, right? That's something we will do here. So let's say if I want to manage a product. So how will you do it? Of course, you can create variables, right? We have mentioned all the variables here. If you can see, we have a name, we have a type, we have a place, we have warranty. Now this can be your variables as well. So I can simply come back here and I can say string product, or maybe I can say string name 1. Since we have different products, we can have name 1, and I can have my first product as Asus VivoBook, which is the laptop. And then I can say string type 1 is equal to, what is this type? This is particular laptop. And then I can say string place 1, and this is sitting on a brown table. So basically in our office, we have colorful tables. I'm using a white table. The table which I use for the development purpose, that's a black table. The development team, developer sets on the brown table, right? And editing team, I'm not sure which, okay, it's also brown. Yeah, okay. So is it white?
White and brown.
White and brown, okay, cool. So I can say a brown table, right? And then I can say string, what is warranty? Warranty 1. And I can say this is, okay, warranty should be integer, right? So let's say this is 2024 or 2022, I guess the warranty is already over. So we can have these values here. Okay, this is not string, this is int, yeah? And then for a different product, now this is one product, right? What is a different product now we can have? What do you think? If I want to have a different product, let's say a mouse, how do you specify that? Of course, I can just simply copy this and paste it here. And this will be product 2 or name 2, type 2, place 2, and warranty 2. Of course, you can change the value to Apple mouse, and then type is mouse. Where it is sitting on the white table, and then the warranty, you can mention that. So do you think this is a good idea to have different variables like this? Or we can create a separate class where you can have the types, and instead of having 4 types here, we can have 1 type which is product. Of course, right, in object-oriented programming, it's all about creating an object or a class, right? So if you want to create an object, you create a class first. So in Java, basically, if you want an object, you create a class. So I will right click here and I will say new class, and I will name this class as a product, which also represents an entity. Okay. So, and I forgot to do one more thing. So today we are focusing on building this product as a console-based application. So because whatever output you will get is on the console. But of course, in this current era, we don't do that, right? What we want is a web application, a GUI, or some way to interact with the application. So what we'll do is today we are going to build this on a console. Tomorrow we'll build this on the tomorrow let's try to connect with database, because today we're not going to use database. We are going to simply have the data somewhere in the application itself. Tomorrow let's convert that into a database, and then if we have enough time, we can also create a server to it. Okay, so yeah, so we can have a website development. So we will shift the entire application to a normal application to a web application. Okay, so here what we can do is we can create those variables. So what are the variables we have? We have name, type, place, and warranty. So I can simply come back here. I can say private string name, and then we can have private. Why I'm using private is because in Java we have concept of encapsulation. So all your variables or properties which you say should be private, and the only way to access them. So what is the only way to access them? So the only way to access them is with the help of getters and setters. So I can say string name, then we have string type, then private string place, and private int warranty. See, for warranty, we can actually go for the exact date as well. But then just to keep it simple, let's go for the year only. Okay, so you can see we got a class here, which is public, and the name is product, and we have 4 variables. And if you want to follow the concept of object-oriented programming, we also need a constructor. So maybe I want to create an object by passing all these values, and maybe I want to create an object by not passing any value. So I need a constructor. So I can, you don't have to type the constructor. You can simply right click here and you can say generate, and you can click on I want a constructor. So if you want a default constructor, you can say select none, and you got a constructor. But I also want a constructor which can take parameters. So I can say generate constructor with all the variables and click on OK. And you can see we got a constructor with all the variables. Next, we also need a getters and setters. So basically, these are the methods using which you can assign the values and fetch the value. Because all these things are private, right? So the only way to access them outside this class, because see, this is a different class, mini is a different class. So if I want to access them, I can simply create getters and setters. So I will say generate getter setter for all the variables and OK, right? Our job is done. Okay, if I go back to main, now I don't want to assign values like this, right? So what I can simply do is I can come back here and I can create an object of product. I can say product P is equal to new product. So we got the object, and then I can simply print this object. So tell me, yeah, of course, Akash says we can use here Lombok as well. So let me try to do Lombok tomorrow. So once this is over, because this will take a lot of time, tomorrow we'll try to do Lombok as well. So if I try to print this, what will be the output? Of course, let me just run this code to see what happens. We can just click here, say run main. So you can see it is printing something weird. It's printing some hash values and the name of the class. We don't want it, right? We want to print the values. So whatever value this P has, the product has, I want to print it. And to achieve that, we can use something called a toString method. So in Java, if you want to print an object and if you want to print the values of it, you can just right click here and say generate toString for all these values. And now what we are doing is every time you try to print the object or reference, it will call the toString method and it will print something like this. So let me try. I will just run this code once again, and you can see we got the object and the output is something like this. You know what I will do? Okay, let's keep it there itself. So you can see it is printing the product, name is null, type is null, place is null, warranty is 0, is because we are taking the default values. So basically when I create this product, I should add some values here, right? So we can do that. Okay, but let's do that differently. Let's say I have some products with me and I want to add them. Now we can do that in main as well. But then in software development, there's a concept of delegation. What you do is you don't do everything by yourself. In fact, let's say if you're working for a big company, and we always have these questions. Let me know if you're working on a company and you feel that you do all the work and your manager is doing nothing. Do you have the same thoughts? So if you feel your manager is doing nothing, then you're wrong. It's because, okay, there are some managers who does nothing, but then managing people is a very difficult task. In fact, in my office, even if I have less number of employees, it consumes a lot of my energy just to manage the team, just to manage the work. But then we have this idea of delegation, right? So from the upper management, if there's a decision made, it will be assigned to the lower people who are lower on that tree. And then these people who are managers assign the work to the people who are actually working. Example, developers, testers, admin people, right? So that's how you do it, right? So we have the hierarchy. So that's delegation. So we delegate the work. In the same way, if you want to do all those things, we want to add the products, we want to search our product. I don't want to write all the logic on main. So main should be simply saying, okay, add this product. Main says, give me the product. The actual logic will be somewhere else. And that's where we'll write the actual logic. The actual logic of all this thing will be going in a separate file. So I will right click here on source and you will say create a new class. And I will call this class as a product service. Okay. Now this class is responsible to do all the things. So logic should be here. Of course, you can write the logic in main, but then let's follow the concept of delegation here. So let's delegate the work. How do you do it? How do you delegate a work? So of course, I want this to do everything, right? So what I will do is I will say, create the object of product service here. So product service. Let's name this as a service itself, equal to new product service. Yeah, we can also say this is a service layer. So when you move to the web development or enterprise development thing, this is called a service, right? A service layer. Okay, now to this service, I will say, hey service. I will say, hey service, add the products. Okay, how will you do it? So I can simply say service dot add product. So I want service to give me this option of adding a product. But service says, unfortunately, I don't have any method in this class which says add product. So what we can do is we can go back to service and let's create a method. So public void add product. And in this, it will add the product. But then where is the product and where to add? Now, basically, since we have multiple products, right? We don't have one product. In my office, we have, I don't know, we'll calculate one day how many items we have. There are so many items which I think is of no use. There is air freshener sitting there. Okay, we have used it from a long time. When was the last time we have used air freshener? Maybe last month. So let's say we have so many items in the office, right? So many products. How do you store them? Where do you store them? Of course, it should be stored in a database, but then in today's session, we're not talking about it. So one place where you can store all the products is a list. So we can create a list of products. Now, people who are finding this difficult to understand, see, we are basically building project, right? I'm not teaching you basic Java here. If you're still confused, there's an entire playlist on Java. So I can say list, I want a list here. Control thing, yeah. Okay. So we have to also import the package, the list package, or list class, list interface from this package. And let me name this as products equal to, and I can say new. Okay, now list is an interface. So the class is add a list. So we got a list of products here. Okay, so I will add the product in this thing. So how do I add? It's very simple. Get the products. And in this, now since products is a list here, right? So we have so many methods there. So we got products.add and we can add a product. But which product? We can't simply say add product and it will add. we have to basically pass the object of a product. So here, in this add product, I have to pass the object. So what I can do is I can say product P is equal to new product, and this product will have some values. Now what values I want? The first one I want is, let's say Asus, let's go for that, Asus Vivo book. And this goes in a type, this is of type laptop. The next thing we have to mention is, okay, we got, yeah, place, where it is set. So it's on the brown table. And what's the warranty is 2022. So if you can see, this is the product which I have created. Now, once you got this product object, I can simply pass it here. So what I'm passing is, I'm passing this P. So if you can see, I'm passing a product reference to this add product. Now the same product will go to product service and we have to accept it here. So I will say product P again and just add a P. Our job is done. Does it make sense now? Okay, so we have added one product, but then we have so many products, right? So we have to create those many number of objects here and add it, right? So we can do that. Just to simplify the work, what I've did is, I've created this Sublime file. Okay, why is not opening? Yeah. So basically I have, okay, before doing that, I can do one more thing. So don't you think, instead of adding P here, we can simply take the entire thing from here and paste here. So we don't have to create a reference. We can simply create the object with the help of new keyword and add it to the add product. Does it make sense? And since we have so many products here, what we can do is, I can simply copy the entire stuff and replace with this. Okay, it will save our time, right? So I've added all the products and you can see we got all the products here. Now, if you try to get this list will have this number of products. I'm not sure how many products we have, 15 maybe? Yeah, these are the anonymous object. So what are the things we have? We have a type C, which is a cable, which is there in the black drawer. We have a Mac Studio, which is a computer sitting on the white table. We got this mixer, the audio mixer, which is there. It's audio system, white table. Then we got VivoBook, which is laptop, brown drawer. Then we got Asus ROG machine, laptop, it's on black table. Then we got MacBook Pro, laptop, brown drawer. The Wacom pad, where we can write. It's a writing pad, a black drawer. And then list goes on. You can see we have keyboard, Logitech keyboard, HDMI cable, Java Blackbook, Logitech mouse, Apple mouse, Lenovo mouse, and Blackbeast. Now this Blackbeast is basically a machine which is used for the editing machine. We have named it as a Blackbeast. It's a computer on a white table. Okay, so cool. Does it make sense? We got all the products here. Now let's say once I got all the products, I want to let's say I want to print all the products. How will you do that? How will you print all the products? It's very simple. You can say, hey service, get all products. It's as simple as that. Okay. If you want something, just ask for it. We are saying service, get me all the products. But service says, I have no idea what I'm talking about. Okay. So if you want to do that, go back to product and here create a method which will give you all the products, right? But my question is, when you are returning all the products, what should be return type? When you return all the products, what should be the return type? So the return type is list of product, right? We are not returning one product, we are returning all the products. So we have to say public list product. And then we can say method name is get all products. And then we have to return here. Now what we want to return. So where do we have all the products? In this products here, right? So simply return products. Our job is done, right? So I can just go back to main and here, now you can see there's no error, it is just a warning. Now since get all products will give you the list of products, what you can do is you can accept it here. So I can say I'm getting a list of product and we'll name it as products. So basically get all products will give you the list of products. Does it make sense? Now, once we got this list, how do you print it? There are multiple ways of printing a list. You can simply say sout and you can say products and it will print all the products. Let's try. So I will just run this and let's see what it prints. It prints the list. So you can see this is the first product And if I have to scroll, this is my second product. And if I scroll, this is my third product, and scroll, and list goes on. But instead of printing that in one line, I want to print it one by one. So what we can do is we can use a loop here, and specifically we can use enhance for loop. Just write all these terms, okay? So if you're not sure what I'm talking about, if you want to watch the video later, the concept video. So example, let's say if you don't know what is enhance for loop, just write it down. After this session, I want to learn about enhance for loop. Then after this session, just go to YouTube and search for enhance for loop, and you will get my video there. Watch it and hit that like button, okay? Here also and in that video. Okay, so I will say product. This is how you use enhance for loop. So I will say product P from products. So what it basically does is, this product will have a lot of different values, right? Or a lot of different products. It will pick up one product at a time, and that particular one product will be there in P. Just print it. So take one product and print it. And let's run this code and let's see if it is printing one by one. Yeah, you can see that it is printing one by one now. These are all the items we have. So basically we were able to save the products. We were able to add the products here, right? This number of products. There should be a way to minimize it. Yes, in this 10 days, we are also going to see examples of Hibernate. Okay, cool. So once we have printed everything, what next? What I want here is, let me just print, not so too. Let me print the line here so that we can divide the output, right? So this is the first output which we got all the products. Next, what I want is, I want to get, let's say, a specific product, not all the products, but a specific product. Okay, so let's say out of this, I want to see where is the Logitech mouse. Okay, I want this particular product. It's very simple. What you can do is you can just go back here and say, hey, service. Let me also print what we are printing. So we are printing a particular product. Okay, so you can go back to your service by saying, hey, service, get me a product. Get me a product whose name is, so I will say whose name is Logi mouse. Will this work? What do you think? Will this work? So if I go back to service, we don't have that method, right? So what we can do is we can create a method. So I can say public. Now this time it will return only one product. So I can say public product get product, which will return one product, right? But then it will also take a name, which product I want to fetch. So I can simply say string name, right? But the question is, how will I get that? How will I get that one particular product? What do you think? Okay, so basically from this particular list of products, I want to find one product which name matches with this. So if you want to search, and that's where this searching algorithm comes to picture, right? But will not do that. We'll do a linear search. Okay. So what I will do is I will just go for a for loop, and I want to iterate between all the products. So I can say product P from products. So iterate between all the elements and check if a particular product which we got, get the name of it. So whatever name you get from this list of products, compare with the name which you got here. How do you compare two strings in Java? You do that with the help of equals. So equals, and you will say, okay, not a name, but a name. Right? And if you find the product, simply return it. Your job is done. Right? Or you can simply return, not inside for loop. If you don't find anything, return null. Of course, not a good way, but then yeah, just to get getting rid of the error, we can say return null. Otherwise, you can return the empty object if you want. Okay, and then you can see get product. There is no error, and of course, it is returning a product. So I will simply say product P is equal to this, and then here we can print the product. Let's see if this works. Let's run And you can see we are searching for a Logitech mouse. This is the output which we got here because of this. In fact, you know what we can do? We can comment this section which we don't want now. Let's run once again. And you can see this is what we wanted. We want a Logitech mouse. Okay. And yeah. Now you will be thinking, in the code, we have to mention Logitech mouse. What if you want to ask the user? Yes, you can do that. You can take the input from the user. And if you don't want console, you can build this as a web application. That's your choice. Okay, so this makes sense, right? Okay, so what we wanted now is searching with a particular place, let's say. Okay. In fact, that will be your assignment. Okay, that's your first assignment thing which you do. So there are two things which you have to do as assignment for this particular project, which is, what if someone wants to search based on the place? Let's say I want to find all the things at this particular place. Let's say on a white table, I want to know all the things. I want to know all the things which are there in the drawer. So that's your assignment. First one. The second assignment question you have is, I want to see what are the products which are out of warranty. Example, all the products which has an older date. If you can see, we got 2022 here, 22 done, 2020. All this warranty is completed, right? So I can't get it solved now or repaired from the company for free, right? So I want to know all the things which are out of warranty. So these are the two assignment questions at this point. I will mention that at the end of the session as well. But two assignment questions: one, find all the products in a particular place, and find all the products in which are out of warranty. Now what next we want to do is, we want to search for a particular name. Example, the moment I type black, so it should say black based, it should show black book, it should show Vivo book. Oh, sorry, I'm searching for black, right? So it's black based, black book, black table, anything which is there on the black table. So it should print all the black stuff. So how do we do that? So basically I'm searching with the text, right? So I just want this line, copy and paste. And we are searching for a particular product. No, we are searching for a particular text. And next I will say, okay, so when I say, give me all the products which has black in it. So will I get one product, or will I get list of products? Of course, right? List of products. So I will say list of product. That's what I will get. And I will say this is prods. I will get all the prods. And I will say, hey service, get products with text. And I will mention the text here. So text is what? I want to search based on a word like black. Okay, but unfortunately we don't have this this word, right? So what do you think? What can be done here? Okay, I can give some, yeah, good job. So there's the option of substring. We can do that. Yeah, we can convert that into uppercase and lowercase. Okay, we'll do that. So what I will do is, I don't have that method. So let me click here. In fact, you can also click here. You can say create method get product with text. And you can see we got the method here. But at this point, the method is not doing anything. So basically, I want a list of products here because that's what I want to return. So I'll say products equal to new add a list. Okay. And at the end, I want to return this, return products. Okay. So let's run this and let's see what happens. Of course, I want to print all the values. So I will just use this for loop, which is already mentioned here. Okay, it's not copied. Copy, paste. Okay, this is not copy pasting, right? This is code reuse, what we say. From prods. Yeah, prods. Okay, so basically, let me just name this as a product. Because we're already using P somewhere. We are using P here. In fact, you know what we can do? We can also actually comment the entire section here so that we can focus only on with a product with a text. Okay, so will this work? Let's try. If I run this code, of course, you will not get any data here. You know why we got empty is because the list is empty. We want to update this list from all the products we have. So we got all the products here. From that product, I want to fetch few products. In fact, I will just name this as prods here, so that we can have different names, prods. Okay, so let's add here. But how will you add? Of course, we want to use a for loop here because we want to iterate, right? So what I can do is I can use a for loop, and I want to iterate between the products. So I can say product P is equal to products. So I want to iterate between all the products and find and add only those products in this list which has a black in it. It can be with a black in a name, black in a type, black in the place, right? So how do we do that? So it's very simple. You can simply use a if condition here, and you can say p dot get name. Do we have how do you do it? Can I use substring? That's one option. Or if you talk about a string, it also has one more method called contains. You can see that we got contains. Because we don't want a string. We just want to check if the text is there. If it contains the word, okay, why it is black here? It should be text, whatever text you're searching. If that text is here, or check in the place. So I will say get, or maybe type, check in the type. Does type contains this text? Or does my place contains this text? Contains the text. So basically I'm checking everywhere. I'm checking in the name, I'm checking in the type, I'm checking in the place as well, right? If it is there, I will add this particular product in the prods. So prods.add P. And of course, you might have to rewatch this session, try it by yourself, because when you're just watching on the go, it's difficult to remember everything, right? So yeah, before we go ahead, hit that like button, everyone. Come on, sometime you have to keep YouTube happy. How YouTube promotes the video, they basically see the number of likes, they see the engagement, they see the comments. So do that. Make YouTube happy. YouTube will make me happy. And that's how it works. That's how the ecosystem works. Why? Okay, there's an equal to here. There should be a colon. My bad. Okay, cool. I think this should work now. Let's see if this works. I will just go back to my main, or I can just stay here, run. Okay, still not working. I think the problem is when you say black, exactly this text black, and if you see the products, we don't have any black with small b. You can see all are capital B block, B here. Okay, that will not work. So what we can do is we can actually convert this into a lowercase. So whatever text we are getting, I will simply say string str. And so if you want to compare two strings, it's always better to have in a lowercase. So I will say text dot to lowercase. So, and then don't compare with text, compare with string, because that's a lowercase. And not just this, you have to also convert this get name, whatever name you get here, whatever type you get here, also into lower text. So what you can do is you can create some local variables here for the name. In fact, not here, inside the loop, because the value will change every time. So I can say string name, and this name will be p.getName. And then we want a lowercase of it. So dot to lowercase. That's how you compare basically. Then we got string type is equal to p.get type to lowercase. And again, string place is equal to p.get place dot to lowercase. And now instead of comparing with the data which you get from the product, just compare with the variables which are already converted into a lowercase. You got the point, right? What is happening here and how do we solve that? Yeah, so basically you have to convert it into a lowercase or uppercase. It should be common case. Let's see if this works now. Yep, it worked. You can see that we got all the products which has something black. You can see the place is black drawer. Here it's also black table. YCOM is in black drawer. Logitech keyboard is in black table. HDMI cable is in black drawer. Java black book. Then we got black table, black drawer, and black best. It worked. So we are going to enhance this product more in terms of connecting to a database, in terms of connecting to making this as a web application. And then the way we have built this product, we don't have to change much. Okay. And this class will be used as it is. You will see that once we start doing this. Okay, what else we can do here? So assignments for you. Let me just write down the assignments on my iPad so that you will remember the assignments. Okay, not sharing my iPad. Okay, so assignment. The first one, you have to search by place. Okay, that's one. Next is, okay, what are the next thing? You have to search by warranty. Search products out of warranty. So the first assignment is search by place. Second is search product out of warranty. Next, you need to implement a stream API here. Okay, so if you see the thing which we have done here, let me show you that once again. The thing which we have done here, searching it with this is basically a normal iteration, right? I want you to convert this into a stream API. Okay, convert this code into stream API. How will you do that? So on my channel, there is a video for stream API. Watch it, you will understand how to use stream API and implement that. So that's your third assignment. So this is the work which you have to complete before the next session. Yeah. And I love to see your post by saying this is all about learning. It's not about MacBook, and that's what we want. Okay, because see, in your life, if you know something, if you master something, and if you're consistent, you will get thousands of MacBooks. It's not just about one. Okay, it's of no use if you get a MacBook without knowledge. Yeah. And I have learned that in a hard way. So basically, in my entire career, I've never focused on how much money I earn, how many gadgets I have, which car I drive. It's more about what I'm learning every day. If I don't learn something every day, I feel I'm not done enough. Okay, so do that. Okay, focus on learning, not on the things. Cool. So what's the agenda for today? The agenda is very simple. We are working on a project which is a product. So basically, we are managing the products which I have in my office. And for that, we were able to add the products in the list, and then we were able to fetch it. We were able to search it. And I have seen your assignments. I don't know. I never thought I can make such a bigger impact in just. It all started with a small thought of giving away. Then we got a thought, hey, can we just do a challenge of 10 days? And now looking at your response on different platforms, it's amazing. Every time I open LinkedIn now, I get tons of notifications. And then in the entire day, I'm actually spending now 2 to 3 hours just checking your messages and notifications in LinkedIn. And that's quite fun. So it was an amazing experience looking at your messages and notifications. And one thing you can do if you want to improve your reach on LinkedIn, because it's a very great platform to create networks, create connections, getting a job. So what you can do is when you're posting something, try to make it more interesting. Maybe by putting an image of what you're doing. Example, I saw some of the posts. Let's say if you talk about Pascal triangle. So having a Pascal triangle in your LinkedIn post as a photo will give you a better reach, because when people scroll on LinkedIn, they get excited looking at the images, not just the post. And when you start with your post or the article, or not the article, but the post on LinkedIn, the first line is very important. That's how you can hook users there or your connections. Okay, so let's talk about what we are going to do today. It's very simple. Basically, we are going to focus on a project which we are doing, and then we'll convert that project into Spring project. Now we will introduce a framework. Let me give you my experience. When I started my programming journey, and then when I looked at different frameworks. In fact, I started my career with Java, then I worked on Swing tool, which is the GUI tool. Then I moved towards web development, Servlet and JSPs, and I was very happy. But then someone suggested, hey, instead of working on Servlet JSP, you should work on Sturt's framework. And when first time when I heard about a framework or a tool, I was like, I'm happy, it's all working here. Why you have to learn a different framework to do the same thing? Of course, the project which you build in without using a framework is same as when you build a project using a framework. It's almost same, right? The output will be almost same. Then why to learn a new framework and do it? It's because framework will reduce your work. Of course, you have to learn something, but with less efforts, you will get more. And that's what you get from the frameworks. And today, after this session, I'm sure you're not going to learn Spring Framework because it's very difficult to teach Spring Framework in 1 hour. But you will realize the power of Spring. A lot of magical things are happening behind the scene and you will love it. Okay, so yeah, you're going to learn about the Postgres as well, which is a database. I wanted to go for some database like MySQL, but then you might have worked on MySQL. I wanted to give you a new flavor, and that's why we have Postgres. Okay, so let me share my screen and let's try to understand what is the problem here. So this is what we are building here, right? So if you can see, we have our code, which is the main file in which you have, basically what we have is we want to add products. What is the product here? So if you talk about a product class, it has 4 private variables. We have name, type, place, and warranty. Example, let's say a product can be anything. Example here, if you see, we have a product which is Type-C cable, which is a type of cable, and place is black drawer. This is the warranty. I'm not sure if we do really, okay, we don't get the warranty for cables, but it's just that. Then we got Mac Studio, which is a computer on a white table, and that's a warranty. So basically what we did is we created different products and we have added all the products in a list. And for that, we have used a product service class. And then in the product service class, we have a list of elements here, a list of products. And then we can add the product. We can get a single product by a name. We can get the product by a text. We can, okay, I have also given you some assignment on warranty and stuff. I hope you have done that. Okay, this is what we have done, right? And we were able to add the products. We were able to fetch the products. Okay, but then what is the problem we are trying to solve here? So before that, let's understand the architecture of the project, which we already have. So we have a main file, right? So this is your main file. And then if you want to add a product, basically we have a product service class, which is doing all the logical part. So from the main, basically we are saying add a product, right? But then how exactly product will be added? The logic is maintained here. So logic is there inside the product service. Now how to get the product? So again, we are just calling it, right? From the main, we are just calling it. And the logic is mentioned in the product service. And then how do you represent a single product? We don't want to use variables, and that's why we are basically using a class called product. Now this product class represents an entity for you, right? Now this will have a name and name, place, type, and warranty. And basically in the product service, what you have is, now since we have multiple products, we have to store it somewhere. And where we are storing them is in the list. So basically you have a list, and inside this list, you are storing all the products. The problem with this is, it's a very common problem where every time you run this application, so whatever application you have here, every time you run this, basically you are creating a new list, and then you are initializing the list with these values, and then you are fetching value, right? I don't want to do this. I don't want to, every time I run the application, it should add the list like this. Ultimately, we are working with a code, right? Example, if you have a new product, basically we have to change the code here. We don't want to do that. So where do you store data? Because at the moment I close this application, I will lose all the data, right? And to store this data, we have to store it somewhere. And that's why in this particular project, what we're going to do is we will be using a database here. Okay, now this is your database, and currently we are using PostgreSQL, which is one of the most amazing open source database. Okay, I think you cannot see that. That's weird. Yeah, basically we are continuing with the extra days code, so we will be expanding it. Yeah, and this is what I was talking about. Venkatesh has mentioned an important thing here, which is code looks difficult yesterday, but after doing it by myself, it seems easy now. That's important. You have to try the code by yourself, because when I type, I have a clear picture in my mind because I'm typing it. I know how the flow going. But when you watch a video or when you watch it live, sometimes you're not clear what is happening, and that's why we have to write the code by yourself. So basically what we're doing is we are creating a database now, and we want to store this data in the database. So basically whatever list you had here, this list, instead of storing it in a list, we have to store that in the database directly. Now we can directly write the code. So question arises, how do you write a code for database? Somewhere we have to use something called JDBC. Now JDBC stands for Java Database Connectivity, right? So we need to use JDBC here. Now the problem is, if you want to use JDBC, we have to write some steps to work with JDBC, and the question is where you will write the steps. And that's where we have to use something called a layer. So don't write your JDBC code inside service. Service is meant for logic, processing logic. If you want to work with database, what you can do is you can create another class here called product DB. Now this class is responsible to communicate with the database. Cool. So that's what we are going to implement here. I just need to check if everything is proper in my machine. Just a second, everyone. Yeah, basically we have to get a different class, right? So what I'm going to do is, in this code, basically, we are going to write database connectivity, database connections. And to achieve that, we have to make some changes. Now, what kind of changes we want here? The changes are very simple. If you want to connect to a database, of course, first of all, we need a database here, right? Now, if you want to work with database, what you can do is, first of all, we start with the JDBC part. If you go back to, okay, so in my machine, I have installed something called a Postgres. So you have to install Postgres first. Now, how do you install Postgres? Very simple. So go to browser and search for Postgres. This is where you can download it. And Postgres and MySQL is almost similar. The difference is Postgres being open source now, and MySQL is a part of Oracle. It's also open source. I guess there's one version of MySQL which is open source. I'm not sure, but if you totally want to use the open source version, I would prefer to go for Postgres. And you can see you will also get the source code of it. Not needed, but anyway. So you can download the Postgres in your machine, and once you install it, it's very simple to install it. You just have to set the password. You will get something called pgadmin. So once you install Postgres, you will get pgadmin, which is Postgres admin. And you can use MySQL if you want in your assignment. So you have to set the password. I have set the password, which is 0000, so 4 times 0, and click on OK. Now this is how your Postgres database will look like, or Postgres admin will look like. And in this, you will have an option of server. So if you expand server, okay, just asking me for the password, enter. Yeah, so this is how your Postgres will look like. I know this looks some fancy tool. You know, you can see all the dashboard, the benchmarks, what is happening with your system. And if you can see, we have databases here. By default, you will get this Postgres database. Test is what I have created, but you can use Postgres. And if you want to create a database, which we are going to use, what we can do is we can right click here and we can say create database. And what database name I want to have here is Telusko. So that's my database name. If you want to see the SQL query for this, you can click on SQL, and that's the query. So create database Telusko. We don't need all these things, but then the owner is Postgres, doesn't matter. Click on save, and you can see you got your database here. So this is your Postgres, the database which you created here. And in this, if you look at schemas, now this is where your table, you will be having your tables. So I'm assuming that you know the concept of SQL, database, tables. Okay. Otherwise, we have to take next 6 months to talk about SQL. It's a huge topic. But yeah, we got the database which is Telusko, and here you can see we have tables, and by default it is empty. Okay, I want to create one table here. So what you can do is you can right click here and you can click on create table, and what table I want. So my table should be a product table. Okay, so we want a product table, and in this we want to, okay, so we want a product table. And how many columns you want? So basically you can just click on the column here and you can create the columns. So the first column which I want is ID. So I know we don't have the ID in our, remember when we started talking about our project of product management, I've mentioned that your product is actually an entity, right? So every entity will have one table. So let's say in your project you have 5 entities. Every entity will have a table, right? So in the table, basically, you need to have your primary key. So every table will have a primary key. So in this case, I'm creating a primary key here. See, name cannot be a primary key because I can have two laptops with the same name. Yeah, possible, right? Okay, so I have ID. What is a type of it? I want the type to be integer. Do we have integer here? Yeah, we want integer of type. Length scale doesn't matter. This should be a primary key. I also want this to be to have auto-generated values. I don't want to generate value by myself. So every time I enter a new product, it should give it a new ID, 1, 2, 3. And the way you can do that is, I'm using Postgres after a long time. So there should be an option of identity generated. No, identity always increment by 1, start by 1. And that's it. I think it should work. Let's see the SQL query for this. Generated as always as entity identity. Okay. Increment 1, start 1. Cool. If I click on save, done. So you can see we got table here. But I want to check if this table works. What I can do is I can just go to the query tool where I can write the SQL queries. So this is a place where you can write a SQL query. I know I'm going a bit fast, but you have to rewatch this session. This is not about teaching you SQL. This is more about how do we build a project, right? So what I will do is I will first of all say select star from product. Let's see if we have any product there. It's empty. Relation product does not exist. Is it? I've created this table. Is it case sensitive? From when? No. Something is not working. So I'll say use Telusko. Select star from product is okay. Something is not working. What's wrong? I've clicked on this. I'm using this database. Let me just refresh it once and run. Okay. Something is weird. How about this? If I say this belongs to Telusko, this is not working. Columns is there. Okay, we got only one column. Oh, I forgot to enter all the different columns here. You know what I will do? I will just drop this and let's create this table by query. So I will say create table product. The product should have an ID. And if you want to have a SQL query, you can also mention serial. Okay, you have to mention this of type integer. Serial, if you want the auto-generated, and it should be a primary key. And as DBMS changes, this also changes. Yeah. No, table is not Telusko. Database is Telusko. And yeah, I'm in the right thing. Doesn't matter. And then we can say name is text. I think Postgres supports text, not string or varchar. So we got name. Then we got type, which is also a text. Then we got place, which is also a text. And then we got what? We have one more thing, which is warranty. Yeah. So warranty, which is of type integer. Let's run this and let's see what happens. Okay. Did I mention the wrong query? Don't have to mention integer, is it? So it says near integer. Okay. Yeah, it worked. Okay, so we should not mention integer if you are mentioning serial because it is serial is also a type. Okay, cool. We have created this table. I will just say now let's see if this works. Select star from product. I want this to be empty. Yeah, you can see it is empty now. So we got a table and this is auto increment now. This will increment automatically. I will not even insert this. But then I want to do that from the Java code now. So if you can see, I'm adding a product here. But if you see, we are adding all the products, and then in the service, we are adding in the list. But what we are going to do is, we will not be doing the changes in this particular file. The problem is, when you are working with the database connections, we need to create a different, we have to add some libraries. We need to connect with JDBC, right? For JDBC, we have to add a jar file. Okay, and then you can actually do that in the external files. You can just go back to external files and you can add, or external libraries, you can add a jar file. But to better manage the product, we can use something called Maven. Now, Maven is a build tool which also helps you to handle these jar files. So what I can do is, I can right click here. I hope there should be an option of converting to Maven. Okay, do we have it here? Refactor. No, I can't see any option. Let me know in the chat if you know where to, because I have used this on Eclipse. Because in Eclipse, you get this option here. No problem. What we can do is, we can simply create a new project, and let's say new project. Okay. And then instead of selecting a normal project, what we're going to do is we're going to select a Maven project, and we'll name this as product demo DB, because we are working with DB database now. And then everything is as usual. So, okay, there's a question, Maven versus Gradle, which is best or which is better. Both are good. It's just that I'm more comfortable with Maven because it is easier to teach. In Gradle, there are a lot of new things, and then indentation is one thing. So for projects, Gradle is good. For teaching, Maven is good. Yeah, and for beginners, Maven is good. Okay, click on create and it will create a Maven project. I will say new window because I want both these windows. Okay, and then in this, I'm going to simply copy the files. So if I go back here, I want all these files, so I can just simply copy and paste over it all. And I'm also going to change, packages org.example, let's stick to that. Now what you get in the Maven project is this. If you expand this, or if you go to pom.xml, so whatever dependencies you need, you just need to mention those dependencies here. So what you can do is you can put a thing called dependencies, and whatever dependency you want, you can just add it here. Now what dependency we want? We want a dependency for this, what is the connector, right? Now how do you get the connector? How do you get the dependency? Do we have to by heart it? Not exactly. So what you can do is go back to your browser. There is a website called MVN repository. And in this, you just have to search for PostgreSQL JDBC. And if you can see, we have it here. This is the library which we have to use. And make sure that you get the recent ones, okay? Don't go for the versions which are way old. And which one to choose here? So I always go for second last version because all the latest version will always have some issues. Okay, and it also tells you which of the library has vulnerabilities, and you can see there are certain vulnerabilities here. This one is safe, but we'll go for this one, 42.5.4. Select this one and copy this, go back to your project and just paste. So what you got there is dependency, okay? And every time you make the changes, depending upon different IDs, you will get different options. Yeah, okay, here. Add framework support, Maven. Okay, we got the option. Cool. Hey, done. Oh, it was so fast. We don't need to have a create a project. So what you do is you can just click on this, right click on the project. Thank you so much, Praveen. Add framework support and select Maven here, and you will get this option. Oh, that was cool. So now let's go back here, specify the dependencies and paste it here. Okay. So good thing is you don't have to create a new project. Thank you. And now the moment you add this, what you have to do is you have to refresh your Maven. So if you can see there's an option of Maven changes, click on this and it will download the jar files for you. If you want to see where it is, click on the external libraries and you will find a jar file for Postgres. Cool. So this is what we wanted. Now, once you have added that support, it's very simple now. What you do is instead of adding to a list, we are not going to do that now. So what I will do is I will just comment this section and everywhere we have to make the changes. Okay, let's not comment because our code is dependent on it. We're not going to use it. So let's say if I want to add a product. So what do you do is instead of adding to a list, because we are not going to do that. We're not going to add to a list. We will add this to our database. Now, how do you connect to a database? It's very simple. What you do is you simply say I want a database connection. So I can say db dot add a product, or maybe I can say save, db dot save and pass p. Just by writing this line, the data should be stored in the database, right? Will this work? Of course not, right? It's not Rajnikant to know everything. We are not sure which database you are using, what is your database name, which DBMS we are using, what is your database name, what is a password to connect with it. So this will not work. So what we want is, we want an extra layer. Remember in the iPad when I was talking about it, we have mentioned about the extra layer. This is the layer which we want to create. So how do we create that layer? It's very simple. You can just right click on your project here and create a new class and name this class as product DB. Okay, we'll do it later. And in this class, basically you have to create a save method. So I want the object of product DB. So I will say product DB, and I will say this is DB equal to new product DB. Once I get this object, I can simply say db.save, but unfortunately, we don't have a database here. So what I can do is, we don't have a save method. So I will click here and say create method save, and done. We got this method here. And this method is responsible to store data in the database. The entire service class should not have any idea about database. It will simply say, save it. I don't care how you do it. It is your job, product DB, to connect to database and save it. Now, to connect with database, you have to learn how do you use JDBC. So you will find in the description, you will find some videos. One is for Spring Framework, one is for Lombok, which we're going to use, and also for JDBC. So in this, we have to connect to database, right? And I will not be teaching you database connections, JDBC connections here. I'm just going to write it. So basically for JDBC connections, you need something called a connection object. So you have to say connection, which is coming from java.sql. Now this is coming because you have added that jar file of Postgres. If you don't add this jar file, you will not get this. So we'll say connection con equal to, okay, we'll just say equal to null by default. And let's create this object in the constructor. So I will say public product DB constructor. And in the constructor of this, I will simply create the object. And the way you do that is by using a driver manager dot get connection. And in this, you have to mention the URL. Okay. Now it will take 3 parameters from you, not one. It will take 3 parameters. The first parameter which you have to mention is about the URL of the database. The second one is a username, and I know the username, so this is Postgres. That's the username. The password for my machine, Postgres, is 000. When you install, make sure that you change it. And then we have a URL here. Now this is something you have to remember or by heart, that's your choice, but when you work from a long time, you remember that. So you say JDBC colon Postgres SQL colon // not this / localhost, because it is installed on your machine, colon 5432, which is the port number for Postgres. Okay, for different database, we have different port number. I think for MySQL, I forgot the port number for MySQL. That's weird. So this is the port number for Postgres. So you got this detail, right? We got the URL, we got the username and password. So you might get an exception. What you can do is you can click on more actions and you can say surround with try catch, because it might throw an exception. So once you got this database connection created, let's save the product. Now to save it, what you need to do is you have to write a SQL query, right? So we need a SQL query here. So I can say query. Now what will be my query? My query is very simple. I want to say insert into product with the fields, because I don't want to mention the ID. ID should be auto-generated. So I want to insert name. I want to insert type of the product. I want to insert the place. I want to insert the warranty. Cool. And then values, we have to insert the values as well. Now question arises, from where you will get the values. Tell me, if I want to insert all this data, from where you will get the values? So basically the values you will get is from the product. This is where you have all the values, right? Because one product will have details about your product. It will have a name, type, place, and warranty. So what you can do is you can add the values here. Okay. But since we are going to use prepared statement in JDBC, now if you want to know more about JDBC, you will find the link in description. and you can watch the video later about JDBC. But here I will say question mark, question mark, question mark, 4 question marks for 4 different values, and we can replace that later. But how do you execute the query? So we have to create something called a prepared statement, st equal to con.prepare statement, and we just have to pass the query here. So whatever query you have created, just pass it here. Now this might also throw an exception. So what I can do is I can say surround with try catch. We are just creating a query now. Let's execute it. So how do we execute it? So we can simply say st.execute. Now what it will do is it will execute the query. So let me just go with the flow again. In the main, what we are doing is we are saying add product. Now this product is actually going to product service. Inside product service, we have this add product method, which is taking a product. It is asking database to save it. So the same object goes to product DB, and then you are accepting it here. And we are using SQL query to send it to the database, right? But the problem is we can't simply say execute because we have not mentioned the values yet. It is still question mark. We have to change these values. Now, how do we change it? Quite simple. Just before the execution, you can say st dot. Each question mark is one parameter, right? So you can say set string, because the first one is string. So the first question mark, since we have 4 question marks, we have to replace it. The first question mark will be replaced by the name, so p.getName. The second question mark will be replaced by p.getType. Type. The third question mark, set string again. The third question mark will be replaced by p.getPlace. And last question mark, which is set integer, because last one is an integer here. So it's a set int. Question number 4, the question mark 4, this is p.getWarranty. So we are able to set all the values and we are saying execute, our job is done. The question is, will this work? I'm not sure, let's try. So what we can do is, we can simply comment all other things, only focus on adding a product. What do you think, will it work or did I complete all the steps? I'm not sure. Sometimes you get to know things when it gives you errors, right? So let's go back here. Say run. Oh, we got an error. It says Postgres phrase, unable to pass the phrase. What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? Just check. Oh, someone also mentioned that you can wrap it. Where do you have the option of wrapping it in the... Oh yeah, okay, this looks good. So we can wrap the entire output. Cool. So we forgot to do one more thing. We forgot to mention the database name. So the database name is Telusko here. Okay, we have not started with the data JPA yet. I wanted to show you the power of data JPA, right? And that's what I'm going step by step here. Let's try to run this once more time. And oh, something happened. You can see there's no error. It says process finished with exit. Okay, let's try. Let's see. How do you verify this? Let's open our pgadmin and let's run this particular query. Oh, can you see that? We got ID, which is auto-generated, and we got all this data here in the database. This looks cool. Okay. Now, once we have entered the data, let me comment the entire section because now we have data in the database. So let's not insert every time. Now this time I want to fetch all the products. This is something I want to execute. Okay, so get all the products. So here, when you say get all products, let's not get it from the list. Question arises from where you will get it. Again, simple. db dot, you can say get all. This is the method I want. So in the database, I want to say get all. But unfortunately, we don't have a method. So what you can do is you can say create method get all. So we got the method and this should return a list. So let me create a list here. So I will say list of products and we'll say products equals to new. Okay, so people who are finding it difficult, my suggestion would be first watch the JDBC video and then also watch the Maven video. So JDBC video and Maven video, then watch the entire session. You will love it. You will see the power of frameworks and how everything works. Okay, so basically what we're doing is, instead of getting data from a list, last time we were getting data from the list, right? This time we want to fetch data from the database. So here we are saying we are getting a list and let's fill this list from the values which is coming from database. Okay, how do we do that? So just say return product so that you will get rid of errors. This time it will return empty. Let me try that. Let me see if I get the empty here. Let's run this. And you can see we are not getting any data because it's empty. The list is empty. So how do we fill this? It's very simple. Again, use the same thing. Let's copy this because we are going to query the database. Paste. What are the changes? The first change you're going to make is the query. We're not going to insert this time. We are going to select. So we'll say select star. Okay, we are not getting star. We are going to mention the column name because we don't want ID there. So we'll say name, type, place, and warranty. From table name is product. And we don't have to apply where clauses because we want all the data. So basically we are fetching everything from database, right? And let's execute the query. Now, since we don't have any question mark here, you can skip the entire section from here and simply say execute. The difference is execute will not return the data. We want data, right? So execute query is something you can use to get the data. And what it returns is the result set. So it will return you a result set. And what you can do is you can get data from this result set and store it in a list. But the problem is it will give you data in the result set format. You have to convert that. Okay, cool. So basically we want to fetch data from result set and set it in the products here because that's what we are returning here, right? So how do you add? So basically we can run a loop because if you say rs dot, there is no method using which you can get all the data and save it in a list. We have to do it manually one by one. There is no option. So what I will do is I will use a loop here and fetch data one by one. So you can say fetch data till the end. And every time you fetch data, you can simply, okay, what we have to do is we have to create a product object because, okay, I know we don't have time to explain this now, but just go with the flow, everyone. So what we are trying to do is we want to create a list of products, right? So we will be having multiple products. So every time you run this loop, create a product object, and it is highly recommended. Make sure that you watch the video of JDBC and Maven. Trust me, this will be very, very easy. Okay, cool. So let's get the product object and save each value in the product values. Okay. So how do we update the value? So we have to say p.setName, and this is coming from rs.getString from the first column. So since we are getting multiple columns, right? This is the first column, second column, third column, fourth column. Then we can say p.setType. This is coming from second column. So I will say getString, column 2. p.setPlace. You know, this is like a beautiful poem from a language which you don't understand, right? It sounds beautiful, but you're not sure what is happening. 3. Then p.setWarranty and rs.getString or getInteger. This time it is integer. And we are saying 4. Okay, so we were able to set the value for the product. Now, once you get all the values, just add the product in the product. So we'll say products.add p. Now, let's say you have 15 values, right? So in the database. Now, this while loop will run 15 times, and every time you will get the new product object, you are setting the values which is coming from database and adding to a list. The same list goes back to the product service. The same list goes back to the main. And in the main, you are printing all the values. Let's see if this works. Run and voila. Can you see that? This time you're getting data from the database. Is this making sense? At least you are getting the gist of it, right? How things works out. So yeah, so basically we were able to fetch all the data, right? The same thing can be done for other things as well. For the other methods which we have here. So you can see we have it for get all. We can also do it for the get product name for a particular name. We just have to we have to change the query here. Okay, cool. So let's get back here. And what we have to do is, so yeah, you can also do it for the get a product with a name, but that is your assignment. Okay, so write a SQL query and convert this into database. I mean, convert this so that you will get data from database. Make sense? Now I want to show you a real magic. Okay. And that magic is, how do we change this project into a Spring Boot and a data JPA? We'll compare this code from the code which we'll write in the Spring Boot. Okay. Now, I don't want to teach you entire Spring Boot now. So yeah, I don't want to teach you entire Spring Boot, but I want to show you the power of Spring Boot and what it can do for you. Okay. So how do you work with a Spring Boot project? The first thing is, if you want to create a project of Spring Boot, you can go to IntelliJ and you can say File, New. When you create a project, you have to make sure that you select Spring Boot, but there should be an option in your IDE. I think my particular IDE is the ultimate version. Yeah, so I have an ultimate version here. You will not get these options, the Spring Initialize option, I guess, in the community version. So if you want to get this project, even if you have a community version, that's completely fine. What you need to do is you need to go to the website and where the other file went. Yeah. So you have to go to the website called start.spring.io. Okay. And here you have to select the project type first, which is Maven in this case. The language it supports is Java, Kotlin, Groovy. We'll select Java here. Version, whichever is default, you can go for 3.1. And then you have to mention your group ID. So that represents your company ID, basically, a unique one. So this is com.telusko. And then the project name. So project name is product demo, we'll say product Spring. You can change this as well. Make the packaging as jar and the version. So make sure that whatever version you have in your machine, select that. And then from here, you have to add dependencies. Now, what are the things we need? So basically, the first thing you need here is what you need. You need a Postgres driver. So PostgreSQL driver, added it. Next, you need something called a data JPA because I wanted to show you the power of it. Yeah, this is called a Spring Initializer. So add these two dependencies, Postgres and Spring Data JPA, and click on generate. That's it, your job will be done. You just have to unzip this. Okay, so click here, unzip it. I will just hide this so that I don't share everything. It's in downloads. Okay, nothing is risky there. Okay, cool. So you can see I have this file here. What I will do now is I will go back to my IntelliJ. I guess I already have the IntelliJ DB here. Let's use this window. I will open this project, which I've downloaded, which is there in downloads. It's there in product Spring. And yeah, open this project, this window. Okay, cool. So you can see we got our Spring project here. And trust me, once you see Spring project, you will say, this is easy, very, very easy. Okay. So if you go back to your pom.xml, this is what you have. You can see we got two dependencies here. In fact, we have three dependencies. You got data JPA. If you can see, you got Postgres, and you got the testing part, testing framework. Okay, cool. Now in SRC, if you go to main, you have Java. And this is your basically main application. Whatever code we have in main, you will be writing that here. Expand this. I will explain this in some time. Okay, this part. So what I'm going to do is here, I'm going to copy the code which we had here. So you go back to main and let's not add everything because we already have that in database. Let's execute this part, only this part. We are fetching all the products. How do I fetch all the products? Just paste it here. The question is, will this work? Of course not, because we don't have a service class yet. So how do we get the service class? It's very simple. You can just copy this service class and paste it here. So you can see we got a service class, which is here. We also need a product class. Paste here. Okay. So we got the product. We got the service. Service says it is searching for product DB. Okay, we'll get that. And you know what I will do? I will remove product DB. And in get products, let's say, okay, let's solve this problem later. Let's solve this errors later. And just to keep it more simple, I will remove this part just to make it easy. And yeah, cool. Okay, so the problem is we don't have a product service class here object, or we don't have the object of product service. So let's go back here and say product service. Let's create the object for it as service equal to new product service. Okay, and then in this we have the object of product. We don't need a list as it at this point, so we can remove the list as well. And okay, now one thing to remember about Spring Framework. Now Spring Framework provides you one of the most important feature in programming, which is the the dependency injection. Now what is dependency injection? If you go back to the main method, you can see we are creating an object of product service. When you say new keyword and when you mention the constructor, basically you as a programmer, you are creating an object by yourself. Is it a bad thing? Yes, it's because when you create the object, it is your responsibility to destroy it. Basically, you have to manage the life cycle of an object. Spring Framework says, you don't have to create the object. I will do it for you. Trust me. Spring Framework says, you don't have to create the object. I will do it for you. Let me show you what I'm saying. What I will do is, I will just comment all the methods here. Comment. And let's create a very simple method. So I will say public void show. And in this show, basically I'm saying in show. Okay. And we all know that if you want to call this show, you need to first create the object. Let me comment this section as well. Yeah. So first you need to create object of product service, then only you can call it, right? Example, I can just go back here and I can say service dot show. This will work. Let me try run. And you can see, oh, it is giving you errors because we have added this dependency of database. Okay. Let me comment this the Postgres and data JPA for some time. Only data JPA commenting should work. When I comment it, and if I go back to my application and, okay, what did I just comment it? Oh yeah, if I comment that, then we have to get this Spring Boot dependency. Okay, you know what I will do? Just trust me. Just trust me, because I have to make a lot of changes if I want to achieve that, because I have to get this Spring Boot dependency then if I comment it. Let me just reload the Maven dependencies. Okay, so the thing is you have to say service.show, then it will work, right? But then Spring Boot says you don't have to create the object. You can just remove this and it will still work. How? Step one, you have to tell Spring Framework to create the object for you. Spring Framework will give you the object. And for that, just on top of your class, say add component. So what you're doing is you're telling your Spring Framework to create the object. So Spring will handle it for you. You don't have to handle it. Ignore the XML file at this point if you're finding it confusing, and make sure that you do it by yourself, then it will make much more sense. Okay, cool. And then go back to your, see, the problem is we are doing so many things at the same time in less amount of time. It does create some confusion. Okay. So what I will do here is I will just try to, okay. So how do I get this object from Spring? So what you do is when you talk about the first line, Spring provides you something called Spring container. So every time you run this line, I mean, the moment you run this line, it will create a container for you. Imagine a container as a box where the objects are already created. So you don't have to create the object, objects are created. And if you want to learn everything in detail, you will find the link in description about this Spring video. Just watch the video, you will get the complete idea. Now this basically gives you an application context object. So let's use it. So this run returns you the object of application context. Let's just use it. And using that context, now since the object is created, right? So the object of product service is already created by Spring Framework and it is available for to use. How do you get the object? It's very simple. You simply say context dot, and you say Spring Framework, give me the object. Okay, so Spring Framework get bean and mention which class object you want. I want the object of product service, service.class. So you mention which class object you want and Spring will give you the object. Yeah, this is called dependency injection. And now this should work. But the problem is I can't run it because there are certain properties you have to mention. So I will not run it now. So getBean will give you the object, but this will work, trust me. Okay. So what we are saying is we want to get the data, right? So from the service, let me just uncomment this part. So from the service, we are saying get all products, which is here. Okay, we are not going to go do add product, right, which is already there. Data is already there. Let's use get all products. Okay, so you can see we are saying get all products, and this will work only when your application is connected to a database, and that too with the help of queries. Okay, and you can see we don't have any file here which has a database connection. But let me create a file here because we want it DB, right? So what I will do is I will just right click here and say create a class, and we'll name this as product. Maybe you can say DB or whatever name you use, doesn't matter. And in this class, you have to mention all the queries. But then if you really want to use queries here, then why you are using data JP and all these features? Let me show you something. Let's not even create a class. Let's create the interface. Okay. And the only thing you will do here is you will extend something called JPA repository. Now, JPA repository is an interface which will help you with the concept of ORM. Now, on the channel, there's a video on ORM. Please watch it. Harsh is not here, so he can't add that in description. But you can search on what is ORM and watch the video. You will get much more idea. But ultimately, when you see the output for this, you will get the gist of it. Now, repository says, tell me which class you're working with. So I'm working with product. And what is the type of your primary key? The primary key is integer. So we simply create this particular interface here and no configuration. Okay, we have not done any code here. But see the magic. And okay, now this is the exciting point. People who are still watching, just see the magic. If I go back to product service and let's create the reference of product DB. So I'll say product DB, just a reference, and DB dot, can you see that? We got methods. Just say find all, no need for any SQL query. No need to do everything which we have done here. If I show you the code, what we have done in the earlier project is this. If you want to get all, you have to write this number of lines. With this, no line. This is what data JPA is doing for you. It's not like behind the scene there is no SQL query, because the only way you can interact with your database is with the help of SQL, but this is happening automatically. Is it making sense? Okay, but the thing is, we got the method, but unfortunately, your application has no idea about the configuration. Nothing. Because nowhere we have mentioned which DBMS you're working with. Is it Postgres? Is it MySQL? Is it Oracle? We have not even mentioned database name. We have not even mentioned username, password. We have to configure those things somewhere. Now, where is that somewhere? If you can see, there's a resource folder here. In the application.properties, this is where you mention all the properties. Now, what's the property I'm talking about? I'm talking about the URL. The URL is for the Spring data source.url. And the URL is the same which we have written before, which is jdbc : Postgres. Oh, let me just copy it because this is the URL which we want. Copy and paste it here. Next thing you have to mention is the username. So Spring data source username, which is Postgres, single S. And we also need a password. So Spring data source password, which is 0000. And that's it. Once you mention this, let's see if this works. Run. Oh, we got errors. I thought it will work. Okay, it says there are certain things which are missing. What is that missing thing? It says error creating a bin with product DB. Oh, okay. The thing is, in the product service, we are creating a reference for product DB, right? Where is the object? Where is the object? That's the problem. So the thing is, as we mentioned for product service, remember we have mentioned component here. In the same way, in the product DB as well, on top of it, we have to say this is a repository because we are working with repository here. And in product service, if I want, see the thing is, just by mentioning this, Spring will not know that you want this object. You have to say, hey Spring, I want an object of product DB. And for that, you have to say AutoWire. Search it and give me the object. Okay, if you want to know more about AutoWire, watch the video which is there in the description about Spring Framework. Okay, if you want to know how I got this full thing when I just mentioned user, just type user, it will give you prompt. And it happens with some of the IDEs. Okay, and it should work now. Let's rerun the code. Okay, now we have different error. And I love errors. See, the thing is, it says, and sometimes you learn by errors, right? It says everything is good. Now I got the object. But the problem is, this product class is not managed. It is not, it's still not a bean. And also there's one more thing which you have to remember. When you talk about the product, it is not just a simple class, right? This is trying to map. So basically, your table and your class is getting mapped. And to achieve that, you have to say add entity here. Next, you also need to specify the primary key, which is the primary key here, which is private int ID. That's your primary key. And to mention that it's a primary key, you have to say at ID. Is it ID? Yeah. So at ID. And then we have to also mention that this value is actually auto-generated. Okay. So how do you get this auto-generated? So ignore this part because this is just something which you can see later. You have to say auto-generated, so generated value equal to, you have to set a strategy if I'm not wrong. You have to set this strategy. And the strategy is generated type identity. Sequence should also work, I guess, but let's say identity. And also, we need to get the getter setters for this, for ID. Right click, generate getter setter for ID. You know, we are doing so much of thing in one video, and you need to rewatch this. Things are looking good now. Let's see if this works. Run, and voila. Can you see that? You got all the data from the database without writing any SQL query. Yeah, we can also add ID if you want to get the ID, but this should work. Now, what are the things you can do? You can also add the product, because if you go back to your product service and let's try to find what are the objects, what are the methods we have. So db dot, you can say we have find all. We also have save. We also got count, how many rows you have. You can also delete if you want. You can also say find one. We have so many options there. Is it making sense? And just imagine, just by using this, your productivity will go on a next level. And that's why in the industry, Spring Framework is so famous. So let me explain the entire flow once again, if you want to create this project. The first thing you do is, you go to start.spring.io, mention all these properties here, which is Maven, Java, whatever Spring Boot version you want to use. Make sure that you don't use a snapshot because this creates some issues. And then mention the group ID, mention the project name, and add these two dependencies, the PostgreSQL driver and Spring Data JPA. Next, you need to copy the files which you have already created, service. Let's start with the XML file first. In the XML file, make sure that you have these two dependencies or three dependencies, or at least these two are very important for us. Oh, I got tired in 1 hour only. Next, in the product service, you have to make sure that this is component, because I want Spring to give the project. Yeah, sorry. I want Spring Framework to give me the object of product service, and I can use something called product DB, which is an interface, not a class, and it is extending with JPA repository. And with this, you can perform the operations, the CRUD operations with this particular interface. You can fetch data, you can save data, you can update data, you can delete data. And we are able to do that. But then you have to also set some properties, which is application.properties, which we have done here. So go with the video once again. I will try to share this code today itself. Hey, yeah, you can also use service here. For different layers, basically, we use different annotations. Doesn't matter, it works. So all the entity class or normal classes, you can have component. Entity class will have entity, and service class can have service. So got the idea what is Spring Data JPA. So all these operations where you don't have to add SQL query is happening with the help of Spring Data JPA. So before Spring, we used to do that with the help of Hibernate. And if you want to learn about Hibernate, there's a video on Hibernate as well. And if you check out the channel, there are so many videos in the last 5 to 6 years. Sometimes even I forgot what videos I have. Your code will be available. So after some time, check out the description for this particular live session. You will find the code repo as a title, and then there will be a GitHub link. And now today we are going to build the same project which we have done before, so that we can, it will make much more sense, okay, what we are doing. But this time we are going to use MVC. Okay, so basically we are converting our project into a web project. Okay, that will be cool, right? So let's get started, and let me show you the code what we have done till now, and let's talk about the code, and then we'll also see what we're going to do today in this particular in the image. Okay, so if I want to go through one by one, basically we have this number of classes here. Okay, let me just move it here. Yeah. And also move it this side. So basically, we have our product class. It's all about this class, which is product class. And in this, we have used 4 variables basically. And for those 4 variables, of course, we need to get getters and setters. In fact, before this session, around 6 p.m. or 5 p.m. IST, I have uploaded a video, a short on YouTube, which talks about the Lombok. How do you reduce this code? Okay, so if you have not checked it out, do check it out later. So we'll also convert this into a Lombok, but we'll see later how do we do that. So this is the class which you want to work with. So every product in my office, basically, that's a product, right? Even if we talk about this remote, that is a product. Now, what I want to achieve with this is, with this product, basically, I want to have a place where I can check where a product actually is. Example, there are some products on this table. In fact, a lot of products, because I'm going live. I have a Stream Deck for the switching between the screens. I have a Mac Studio for the streaming. I have my personal laptop here to check everything is going well. I have iPad where I write something. And I don't know why this light is sitting here. I also have a light here. That's huge. Okay, so it gives you a good light on the face. So basically, we have so many items here, right? So sometimes we keep this item somewhere and we lose it, right? So we have to search where that particular item is. And for that, we have this database, this application which stores where it is. And that's why you can see we have a name, type, place, and warranty, because I also want to know if the current product is still in warranty or not. Now, to manage it, what if you want to add a product? What if you want to remove a product? What if you, or not remove, we have not done that. What if you want to add a product? What if you want to search something, where the particular product is? And also, I want to know in a particular place, how many products I have, or what are the products we have. And if you want to put that logic, we can do that in here. So we have this product service class. And the reason I have created different classes here, of course, you can write everything in one class, because that's what we do when we start learning coding, right? In fact, I remember when I started my programming journey, I used to write everything in one particular file. It's good, it works. The problem is, if you want to change something and you're not sure what you're changing, right? And that's why creating different layers makes much more sense. So what layers we have? So basically, this is my main.java. This is where I execute something. So if you want to call something and if you want to do all the execution stuff, which calling methods and stuff, you will do that in the main class. Of course, you can name this class anything you want. But since this is a console-based application which we already built, we have this main method here. And in this, basically, we are getting all the products. Now, how we are getting the products, that's not the concern of main. It just says, I want the product, give me the products. Same goes for other methods as well. If you want to search a particular product, if you want to search for a place, if you want to add the products. So basically, we have the calling here. The actual logic goes here. So you can see we have a product service here. This is where the actual logic goes, okay? But now, since we want to store this data in the database, right? See, not every application will have a database. And if you're using a database, of course, you can write your database connectivity code. So it doesn't matter which language you work with, which database you work with. We have to connect to a database, right? We have to follow certain steps. In the same way, here, if you want to write your database connections, don't do it in service class. Service class simply says, this is where your logic will be. If you want to process something, example, let's say if you want to add 2 numbers, right? So from a main method, you will say, hey, add method, take these 2 values, which is 2 and 5, just add it. The actual calculation will be happening in the service. So all the processing will be done in the service. But what if you want to get something from database? And that's why we have one more layer here. Now this particular layer actually communicates with your database, right? In fact, in the earlier session, we were able to implement, okay, I think I have done a different thing. Yeah, this was the project, right? Because we have also implemented Spring. Let's talk about this one. But things remain same, right? If you go back to your previous code, this is day 2, which I'm talking about. So you can see we are writing all the SQL queries. Now what we have done in the previous session, so basically we are doing a quick revision of what we have done. But if you go back to our previous session, we tried to reduce the code, right? We tried to say, let's use certain tools and some frameworks so that we don't have to do everything by ourselves. Now my question to you is it a good idea to use frameworks to reduce the code? What do you think? Some of the people I know, they say, hey, we as a programmer, we should write everything by ourselves, right? What do you think? That's a good idea? Whatever the application does, don't take help from anything else. Just build it by yourself. Okay, let me talk about the first problem, which is if you try to do everything by yourself, there are a lot of things you have to do by yourself. Building your own OS, because ultimately your application runs on the OS. Building your own runtime, that means your JVM and JRE. Not using any library. Example here for database connection as well, we have imported some packages. Don't do that. Do it by everything by yourself, right? And we can't do that, right? We want to complete the project in a month or two, or maybe in a year if it is a complex project. If you try to do everything by yourself, it will take months even to write a simple database connection. The second reason is, before I talk about the second reason, I have a question for you. And just complete the sentence. I have used this multiple times. So even if you know it, you can answer that. Or if you don't know about it, think about it. It's a funny thing, not a serious issue or serious thing. So my question is, if debugging is removing bugs, okay, that's what we say, right? Debugging is removing bugs, then what is coding? If debugging is removing bugs, then coding is adding bugs. So what I'm saying is every time you write one line of code, that is a potential bug. Let me show you. This line can be a potential bug. This line can be a potential bug. It may not come up when you run the application, but based on the different input from the user, it might behave differently. And that's why we do testing, right? So every time you write your application, it's important for you to test your application. That's very important. So one way to reduce the testing and one way to reduce the potential bugs is don't write the code. Write minimum lines of code. What if the framework which you're working with says, hey, you don't have to write all these lines. I will give it to you behind the scene. The good thing is all these particular frameworks, they are well tested and they are getting used in the industry from a long time. So at least you can trust them that they are not creating issues. Okay, I'm not saying it is 100% safe. There have been some cases where you have used certain libraries and they found some issues with the library, and because of which the attack happened. You might have heard about Log4j. In fact, in the Spring framework also, there was some, I forgot the library, but if anyone knows, let me know in the chat. It was having some issues. And again, it's not like the issue stays, it gets rectified, but it happens. I'm not saying it is 100% safe. But try to write less amount of code, okay? Cool. So this is what we have done in the database. But then in the yesterday's session, we have seen something called a Spring framework. Now using Spring framework, Spring provides you something called a dependency injection, which means you don't have to create the object. You simply have to use the object. Example, if I want the object of product service, in the previous example, on day 2, basically we were able to create the object with the help of new keyword. But the moment you use a new keyword, that means you are handling the object. You are creating object, you are doing everything with it. So in Spring, what we are doing is we are not creating object by ourselves. We are simply saying there's a Spring container. So Spring frameworks actually create a container for you. Imagine a container as a box which has a lot of different objects. And you simply say, hey, I want that object. Example, let's say if you want a phone, of course, you will not manufacture the phone by yourself. You will simply go to a shop and buy the phone. In the same way, Spring container says, I have all the objects which you need, just ask for it. Okay, and that's what we are doing. We are saying, hey, Spring, get me a bean, get me the object. Basically, the objects in Spring containers are called bean. Of course, it has more logic to it, but let's not talk about the logic at this point. Imagine bean as an object. Okay, and then we are getting the object of this particular class, which is product service, and then you got the object and you can use the object for your purpose, right? And we are able to call the methods. Now the beauty is there's nothing changed in the service, right? You can see we have all the same methods. We have commented it, but it should work. And product service needs the object of product DB. Right? Of course, if you have a class which is calling another class methods, you need object for it. And you don't have to say new keyword. What you can simply do is all the classes or all the interfaces, which is repository basically, what you can do is you can write an annotation. Now, let's not discuss the difference between repository, service, component. Again, it will take another 2 hours just to understand it. But just a gist. Basically, Spring will say, okay, the moment you mention repository, the moment you mention service, the moment you mention component, where we have used it, entity, and you can also use component. What Spring will do is every class which has this annotation on top of it, it will create object for you. And you don't have to get object by yourself. Spring will give it to you, and you simply say, give me the object. And one way to do that is by using auto-wired. Now, how exactly it is searches, let's not talk about those things. Okay, but then it will give it to you. Now, what we are going to do today is we will be converting this project into a web project. Now, today's session might be based shorter because we don't have much to do. We just have to convert this project into web. So let's do that. Okay, so let's get back to our drawing board. So basically what we're trying to do is, first of all, why do we build a web project? Is because when it comes to standalone project, what we have done, it only works on my machine. If I want to use the same thing on someone else's machine, basically I have to take the entire project, give it to them, and they will run it. Example, in our office, we have 4 working machines, and if only one machine has the software, they will not be able to access it. And also, where will be database? Database is in this machine. Then we have to connect and all the stuff. So what we can do is, instead of building a standalone project, we can build a web project where anyone can use it. Not just us, we can use it, the entire world can use it. You can also use it. Maybe we can create an account repository. You can have your own account and you can manage your own products. We can do that. And okay, that's one. So if we talk about client, we are poor people. We have a client, we have a laptop here. So basically from this laptop, I want to access this database. See, ultimately it's all about database, right? As a user, you're not concerned about, you are concerned about the data. You want data, right? So how a user will be connected to a database? So basically a user, of course, if a user wants to send a request, database only works with one language, which is SQL. If you talk about the language database like DBMS, so when you talk about DBMS, we have RDBMS specifically. We use SQL language. Example, we are using Postgres here, right? Now, when we use Postgres, so that is RDBMS, you need to use SQL. Now, from a user, of course, imagine a normal user. A user will not be searching something online, not be searching something by using SQL query. Ask your parents or ask your friends who are from non-IT and say, hey, if you want to check your profile on Instagram, just say select star from Instagram database where the username is this. Of course, as a normal user, we don't do that, right? So what you get is a UI. So basically, a client will get a UI here. So this is where the UI will be. And this UI will send the request to the server. Of course, a server can be on the same, database can be on the same machine, or database can be on some other machine, doesn't matter. But let's say at this point we have on the same machine. Now in this machine, we have to first create something here. So a user will send a request, right? A user will send a request, and what a user will get is response. Now specifically, if we talk about a protocol which we use to send and accept the request, we use something called HTTP, right? So we have to use HTTP protocol to send and receive the request. Now, this particular box here, this is responsible to accept the request from the client. So whatever client's request, it will say, okay, I got this request. Let me see if I can fulfill that or not. Okay. And then based on that, it will send the response as well. Yeah. So based on that, it will send a response as well. Now this type of layer in between, we call them as controllers. Now what is the job of a controller? Just to accept the request from the client and send the response. Let me repeat. The only job of a controller here is to accept the request from a client and send the response. Now whatever extra you want to do, example, let's say if you want to process something, client says, hey controller, I want to add 2 numbers. Now question arises, where you will add those 2 numbers. Will you add that in a controller or somewhere else? So remember, never do any calculations in the controller. Controller's job is to accept the request and send the response. Now, after controller, you will be having one more layer here, which is your service layer. Now this layer is responsible to perform the operations. Example, let's say client says, hey, server, I want to add two numbers. Okay, server says, give me the request. Of course, I will work only when you send the request. The controller, this particular controller here, will accept the request, and then it will say, oh, you are basically trying to add two numbers. Let me take help from the service. Now it is service responsibility to add those two numbers. And then of course, service can send the response to the controller, and controller will send the response to the client, if that makes sense. But what if client says, hey, I want to know some data which is there in the database. Example, let's say you want to fetch a product which is there in the database. Now question arises, who will do it? Is it your service who will do it or someone else? So basically we have one more layer here, which is your data layer. In fact, we can say data layer. It has multiple names to it, but just to keep it simple, we have a database layer, or we can say database layer, data layer, doesn't matter. And then this request goes to service will request to a database layer, and database will send the response. Now this is how you basically have multiple layers in the web application. A client sends a request goes to the controller sends the request to the service sends the request to the data. Data will have the SQL queries which will send request to the database, fetch the data, send it to service will send it to controller will send it to the client. Okay. Now the beauty is a client or a controller can send the data to the client, right? But how the data should look like? Of course, the data should be fancy, right? It should not be a simple data. You want to see the data on a proper layout and all the stuff. So what you can do is you can send a HTML page. So basically what our clients receive is HTML. But nowadays, when you talk about clients, it's not just a web page, or it's not just a web browser, right? In the earlier days, we used to only use web browsers. But now we have multiple devices. Example, you can have a phone, you can have, what else we can have? Anyway, let's say we have phone as well. Now, a client here wants to access data from a phone. Now, if you open any application, our application, we already have a layout, right? Because see, in a browser, when you see a page, you don't have a layout here. You simply have a blank page. Whatever it has to show should be coming from the server. But on the mobile phone, when you talk about any application, doesn't matter is it Android, iOS, or any type of mobile phone, you have a layout specified. What changes is data. Example, let's say if you go to Instagram and when you scroll, basically, you have those boxes fixed. The data changes, right? So we already have a layout here. Now from the server side, do you need a HTML page or do you just want a data? Of course, right? You just want a data. Now question arises, what should be the format of this data? Normally a data can come into different formats. In the earlier days, we used to use XML, but now the famous one is, you can also write in the chat, the famous one is JSON, which is JavaScript Object Notation. So whatever data you get from the controller will be coming in the JSON format. Now the same JSON format will be showed on the Android. Of course, the layout is fixed, data is coming, it will show the data. And even if you're using a browser, what you can do is instead of sending an HTML file, what you can do is you can send a React page, a single page application, and then the React will already have a layout. Every time you do something, it will send the request to the server and get the data. And that's why if you see on the front end part, React is very famous, right? And mobile, you can also use Android or iOS applications. I hope this makes sense, everyone. Okay, so now what we want to do is we basically want to create this controller. Now, how do we do it? And since we are creating a web project, we also need a server. So we need a server where you can run this. Now, different languages have different servers. Example, if you want to work with PHP, I think PHP uses a XAMPP server, right? We also have a WAMP server, XAMPP server. There are entire shop of servers for PHP. Then when it comes to okay, what are the language? JavaScript. So if you are using a JavaScript in the backend, basically you need a node there, Node.js, and that's why if you want to build a backend application, you use Node there. And if you are using Java, basically if you want to use a web server, one of the most famous one is your Tomcat. Okay, so basically if you want to use the entire thing, you need to install Tomcat in your machine. Okay. Oh, so that's what we are trying to build here. This is the entire thing we are going to do. Now in this particular session, we will not be talking about the front end. Okay, so this section here is not something we are concerned about. We just want to focus on the backend part. Does it make sense? We are focusing only on this. But now question arises, even if you build this, how will you use it? If you don't have a front end, how will you use it? So what we can do is, see the thing is, every time you have a server who says you can send a request and you can get the response, even if a server provides 10 features, so let's say a server says, I will provide you 10 features, or server has a 10 feature, but server only wants to provide 5 features to the public. How do we do it? How do we provide the service to the outside world? Let me repeat my question. If a server has so many features or so many services, how it will expose those services to the outside world? And that's why we have this concept called API. So basically from the server side, you have to expose some APIs. Does it make sense, everyone? So we basically have to build this API and expose it. Now question is, if you don't have a front end, how will you expose this? So that's why what we can do is, instead of using this front end here, we can use a API tool, a tool where you can send a request to the API. And one of the most famous API tool is Postman. There are multiple options, but then Postman is very famous, so let's use it. Cool. It's time to get started with the project. Okay, let's rewatch the session then. If it is complex, yeah, you have to watch it. If this is the first time you're seeing this, it's very complex, so do rewatch it. Okay, let's get back to the code. And what we're going to do here is we will build a web application, right? And of course, we can reuse the code here. And what I want to do is I just want to close the earlier project so that we'll have less windows open. We already have so many things going on and stuff. I hope you're also practicing what we are doing in this session, because just watching a session will not make any sense. You will forget this concept in a day or two. So do practice this. Yeah, behind the scene, even if you're using a Spring framework, behind the scene, these are your servlets. Controllers are your servlets. If you want to go detail of Spring MVC, I will make sure that there's a link in description. You will get entire idea how these controllers are created. Because see, what we are going to see today is Spring Boot, okay? And Spring Boot actually makes your work very, very easy. But the thing is, if you really want to understand what is happening behind the scene, that's where you have to understand how Spring Framework works. So Spring Boot is actually a layer on top of Spring Framework to make your work easy. So what I will do is I will create a Spring web project. Now, how do we do that? Just go to the browser and the same website which we have went yesterday, which is Spring Initializer. Select Maven, select Java, all the same settings which we have done. Project name here, Spring Web, because we are building a web project now. And jar file, var file. Okay, now the difference between jar and var is, in var basically you deploy the project on a Tomcat server. So basically the place where you are deploying it should have a Tomcat server. Jar, what it does is it embeds the Tomcat server inside the project. That means if you have a project ready, you can just run it because Tomcat is there already. Okay, now what about dependencies? We need Postgres in this particular thing as well. We also need data JPA because that's how we're going to connect with database. Apart from this, we need one more thing, which is web. Okay, so we need a Spring Web. What else we need? Let me just check. Am I missing something here? I think Spring Web is what we need. We can also add Lombok here because I want to reduce this code. Let me see if I have Lombok. I've never tried Lombok in this. Yeah, we have Lombok here. Cool. Now, once you have all these things, click on generate. Your project will be ready to use. Let's unzip it. Done. And let's open this project. So go back to IntelliJ IDEA, file, open, downloads, Spring product, Spring Web. Click on open. A new window because we want to use the earlier window as well. And voila, you got your Spring Web project ready. Okay, now As I mentioned, the Tomcat is already present in this particular project. If I go to external libraries, and if you search here, Tomcat will be already present. Where are you, Tomcat? Oh, don't tell me they are giving you Glassfish now. Oh, yeah, it's here. So you can see we got Tomcat. I don't know why I was not able to see that properly. Oh, he's Hitesh here? Okay, Hitesh says, can I also win this MacBook? I watch all your live stream. For sure, Hitesh. But I think you already got one from Apple. Yeah, Harsh says, Hitesh, so you already have a Mac Studio. So you can see Tomcat is already here. So what I will do is I will just minimize this and let's create a project now. Or we already have a project, let's expand it. Now, if you check out the pom.xml, now this is where you have all the dependencies, right? So we got data.jpa, we got Spring Web, we got Postgres, we got the Lombok as well to reduce the code. And apart from this, if you go back to SRC, and if you see the files, we already have one file here, which is the main file. And if you expand this, no fancy code. And you can see we got, okay, we have one more file here, which is application properties, which we'll see later. But we got the project, right? Now, if you are coming from the old world of Java, let's say if you are talking about servlets or Spring Framework, normal Spring MVC, we need to do a lot of configuration even before you run the project. Let me run this project. What I will do is, even before running the project, let me go back to my browser. And here, let me search for localhost :8080. Enter. And you can see it says this site cannot be reached because the server is not running. So if you want to access your Tomcat with a default port number, now this is a default port number for Tomcat, and you can see this is not running. What I will do is I will run this application without installing any Tomcat and stuff because Tomcat is there embedded. If I run this code, okay. Oh, the same problem. I don't know why I add the data.jpa because the thing is, Spring Boot is very smart. Now, since we have added data.jpa, it is searching for the database connections. Just to keep it happy, what I will do is I will just get those connections which we have done yesterday. All these connections, copy and paste in the application.properties, which is empty in this case. At least let's keep our data.jpa happy, right? We have done that. And now let's run this once again. Let's see what happens. Run. And you can see it is running. The Tomcat started on port 8080. So just by downloading the project, you are able to run it. No external dependencies. That's fun, right? Let's go back here, refresh. Can you see that? Yeah, we got the error because that's our life. But at least you got the error from the Tomcat. It says the home page which you're searching for is not there because we are accepting the request, but then the request which is coming from the client, we're not able to process it because there's no mapping there, right? Okay, so what we'll do is, let's do the mapping. Now question arises where to do the mapping. So I will just go back here and create a controller. Remember in this, we have talked about a controller. So we need to get this controller here. So I will say new, and let's create a class, and let's name this as a product. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen. Let me do that again, what I've done. So right click on the package, say new, and say Java class, and click on product controller. So we got a product controller here. Now, how do you make this a controller? This is a normal class, right? How do you make this as a controller? We have to give it some extra power. How do you give that to extra power? How do you make this a controller? Just by having a controller in your name will not make you a controller. So how do you make this a controller? It's very simple. You simply add something called a REST controller. Now question arises, controller makes sense. Why it is called REST? See, there's a concept of REST API. Now, since we are using a HTTP request, if you want to do anything on the server side, if you want to get the data, if you want to save data, send data, if you want to update data, if you want to delete data, what you can do is you can use something called REST, which stands for representational state transfer. whatever communication happening between client and a server, it's all about transferring the states, right? Sending the values. And that's why we say a REST controller. To know more about REST controller, I will put a video in description. This will make much more sense then. So you can see we got a REST controller, and now this is a controller. It is ready to accept the request. But the thing is, if you talk about a web application, you have multiple pages, right? So you have multiple pages, and every page will have a different address. If you observe the address bar, your address bar changes for different requests. In the same way, for this particular application as well, you have to specify what you want to do. Do you want to get the products? Do you want to add a product? Do you want to update a product? Do you want all the products? Do you want a product based on a particular name? For that, you have to provide multiple mappings. Example, if I go back to my browser and if I say, okay, from this page, not the courses, I want all the products. I can simply say localhost :8080/products. The moment I enter, it's not working because there's no mapping happening. So what I will do is, for this particular request, what I can do is I can create a method. So if someone is calling products, I have to call this method. Now this method returns a list of products, right? Because you're asking for all the products. So list of products, we don't have that class yet. So I will say get products, or I can say get all products because you are fetching all the products. That's it. The thing is, we don't have this class product here. Can you see that? We don't have this class. So what to do? Okay. So basically, we have a class here, which is a product, and we don't have a class. So what we'll do is, we'll go back to earlier project and copy this class product. Okay, not here, here. Let's paste this class. So we got product. Now there's no issue. We have to import the package for list. Okay. And then here, we can simply return. Okay, what do you return? Oh, I don't know how to fetch this value. It's because controller will not do all those things, right? Controller needs helps from another layer. What is that layer? Yeah, that's right. We want these two classes, service and database. Copy this and paste because we need these two layers as well. The service layer and the DB layer. So what you can do is you can create an object of a product service. So you can say product service. I will say service. And should I say new keyword? No, right? I can simply inject it. So the way you can inject that is with the help of auto wired. And we got it. We got this service class. And now with this service, you will say service dot get all products, job done. You simply converted your normal project to a web project. Voila. This is your web project now. But will this work? That's the real question. Let's try. Let's restart the server and there is no error. You can see. Go back to the browser, refresh. Oh, it's not working. It is not working. What's wrong? What's wrong there, my friend? What's wrong? The thing is, we created this method, but nowhere there's a mapping, right? Of course, a controller can have multiple methods. Different methods should execute for different requests. So we have to mention in English, hey, this is for products request. Simple, right? No, but that's a comment, right? How Java will understand that? So what we can do is we can say @. To do that, we have to say get mapping. And in this bracket, you have to mention what is your mapping. So this will be for products /products. So whenever you get request for products, this is what you have to execute. Save, go back. Okay, we have to restart the server. Restart, no issue. Refresh. Whoa, we got it. Is this making sense? Okay, how to copy files is very simple. Just go back to the earlier project and just copy the files, right click, copy, and paste in your recent project now, whatever project you're building. In fact, I'm not following a proper standards here. You know, the controller should go to controllers package. The DB goes to the repo package. Service goes to service package. Product goes to model package. And that's why we say MVC, right? Which is model view controller. So the data which is passing between all these layers are called models, right? Product is a model here. Yeah, Spring Boot is actually interesting. Cool. You know why I'm not creating those packages? Because the project is already so complex. That's a good practice. You should always do that. But yeah, I'm teaching you the concept, so it works for me. Okay, now what about I want to send the data. Okay, I want to create new entry in the database. How do we do that? How do we send the new record? Well, that's a question. Now let's say if you have a form on your mobile application or a web page, you can enter data and you can say send. But I don't have a UI here, right? How will I send data from here? And what should be the request? Now the request can be, I want to send a product, not products, because when you're fetching it, you're fetching the products, right? But what if you want to send a product, one? How do we do that? In fact, before that, I just want to show you one more thing. What if you want to fetch one particular product, not multiple? So let's say if I want to fetch, let's say I want to fetch black based, okay? So what I can do is, in the request, I can say, hey, I don't want all the products. I want one product. That's my product. / I want black based. Enter. This is not working. How to make it work? It's very simple. You can add one more mapping, copy and paste. And here, instead of saying get all products, I can say get product. And it is not returning a list, it should return a product, simple product. And the mapping will be product / black based, right? And then you cannot return all the products, you have to return one product. So you can say service.get. Okay, but the problem is, I think we have commented it in the service class. So if I go back to service, you can see we have commented this. And the thing is, this should be coming from the database, not from a list. Because we have not coded this in the last session. Let me code it fast. So I can simply say return db dot find by. Okay, if you have to find by name, right? Because you can use find, but then it will work with the primary key. You can see we got find by ID. If you want to do find by, we do have find by, but will this work? Oh, we have to pass the query function as well. So what I can do is Spring Data JPA. In fact, Data JPA provides you one more thing. You can go to database, and if you want to fetch from particular column, not from the primary key, what you can do is you can say return a product and find by name. So whatever column name you have, so say find by, this is fixed. What will change is the column name. So find by name and whatever name you get here, string name. And the beauty is you don't even have to define this. Okay, you don't even have to define this. Okay, where do you find the last session? Go to the channel, and there's a question, where do you find the last question? Let me just do that. So go to the channel and search for a playlist tab. So in the playlist, there's a 10-day challenge. You can follow the videos there. Okay, just add this method. Go back to your service and say db dot find by name and whatever your name is. No need to define, no need to write any SQL query or something. Now go back to the controller and say get product by name, which is, okay, where's the name? Let me just try with black beast. I'm hard coding it at this point. Let's see if this works. Black beast, restart the server. Of course, you can also install dev tools, which will help you to directly restart the server every time you make a changes. Okay. Let's refresh this. Oh, it works. You can see we got black based. But the thing is, it will only work for black based. If you try to use some other name, it will not work. You know why? It's because we have hard coded the values. We are saying black based at both the places. So what you can do is instead of saying black beast, you can put that in curly brackets and say name. So whatever data you're passing from there is saying this is so much easier than day 3 content. Okay, see, this is easy because we have done this in day 3. If you could have skipped the day 3, this is like next level complex because we have not even talked about these layers here. So we have done the difficult part in the last session. Okay, so you can see, so whatever data you're getting, you will save that in this particular name in the curly brackets, and then you can accept it in here. So you can say name. So whatever name is coming here, you can accept it here. Okay, let's try. And the same variable can be used here now instead of saying black based, because see, it doesn't matter what you search, it will always give you black based. We don't want it. We want to, so whatever user says here, that's what you want to accept. So restart and refresh. Oh, it's not working. You can see it's not working. What went wrong? I was expecting error, but there's no error. Give me something. Okay, so let me tell you what the problem is. The thing is, you have to use one annotation here, which is path variable if you want to use this. So by path variable, what you're saying is, in the path, whatever variable you have, just try to map it. So you can see name, try to map it. That was missing there. And now refresh, it works. You can use it for any other name. In fact, I remember we have Asus ROG, right? That's one machine. But the thing is, since we have a space between two words, on the internet, if you want to use web address, web URL, you have to use %20, which is a code for space. Just say enter, and you can see we got Asus ROG. Is it making sense? And the format which you can see here is JSON format. Okay, Patrick sounds more like Guilfoyle from Silicon Valley. Okay, so let me go back to my code again, and now let's do it for the adding a product, because we were able to fetch products. What if you want to add a product? Okay, so if you want to do that, what you can do is you can create public, and since we are adding it, we can use void because we don't want anything in return. Normally, a good practice is to return the status code. HTTP has different status code. Example 404 is for error related to resources. 500 is the error related to the servers. 200 is okay, everything is going well. So every time you perform some operation, you have to return the status code as well. In this particular session, we are not doing it because again, it will be very complex. Okay, so public void add product. And now question arises, what should be a part of this parenthesis? Or sorry, the round brackets. If you are passing a single value, you will accept that in a string. Now you are passing an object from the client side. How will you do it? So since we are sending data from a client, we have to send the entire object of a product because that's what we are adding. So we have to accept that here. So you have to say product P. So we are accepting it. The entire product, we are accepting it. Now, once you accept it, we can simply say service dot add. Okay, we don't have add method. Okay, we have to implement so many things now. In this service, this is the add method. Okay, product and db.save. Okay, this should work. Let's go back to the controller. Say add product, pass P, and your job is done. But how do you map it? Now question arises, what type of request you are sending? So basically, whenever we talk about HTTP, we have different protocols there or different methods there in HTTP. So if you want to fetch data, we use get. And when you want to save data or when you want to send data, we use post. Okay, so we have to use post mapping here, not get mapping. So let me repeat. When you want to get data, we use, when you want to fetch data, we use get. When you want to send data, we use post. And what should be the URL? I want to be consistent with the product. We'll say /product. Now you will be saying, don't you think this one and this one matches, this product and this product? They are matching, but then look at the mapping as well. We got get mapping, we got post mapping here. Okay, of course, this is also different, but even if they are same, we got two different types of mapping there. One is get and second is post mapping. Now, people who are coming from this servlet background, they know what I'm talking about, right? Do get, do post. Okay, so we got this, right? But the question is, will this work? Let's go back to our browser and let's send the data. Oh, but how do I send data from here? Okay, because the browser supports fetching. Of course, you can use some tools internally to do that. But if you want to send data, let's use a real tool which will use to test the APIs. And that's why we have Postman. Now, Postman is specialized in request sending and response. So what I will do is I will start with the products. So let's try this first, this address. In the Postman, this is how Postman looks like. If you want to download Postman, you can go to postman.com and you can download depending upon your OS. So go back to Postman and set a GET request. GET request for this particular URL, which is localhost:8080/products, and say send. And you can see you will get all your data here. And this is a status code you got there. But if you can customize it from the server side. Let's try it for product/blackbeast. Send, and you can see we only got blackbeast. But now I want to send a request. I want to send a post request. So you will go to post. The URL is this, which is localhost:8080/product. But now this time we have to send data as well. How do you send data? So what you can do is you can just copy this. Now, if you want to send data, you will do that in a body. So in the HTTP body, you do that and replace this with this. And let's change values. So we already have till 15. Let's add 16. One of the item on my table is a pen. Pen is of type pen. It's on white table. Expiry. Pen never expires. Let's say 9999. Okay. So yeah, so basically you have to use, we can also use headers actually. Yeah, but then let's use body. You can set the raw and you can set the data like this. You can set the format, what you're sending JSON, and say, okay, the problem is, yeah, it should work. We don't have to set the value, right, for ID. Let's try. Say send. Okay, it says product not found. That's weird. We forgot to restart the server, is it? Yeah, ID is actually auto-generated, so we don't have to pass the ID. But let's say even if you're passing it, no harm. Run. Something happened. You can see there's no error. You got 200. Let's send the GET request again for the products. Send. You can see we got all the products. If you go down, oh, it's not working. You can see the data is not assigned. We were able to send the request. Data is also saved in the database, but not the data which we have sent. Okay, it was not able to accept data. That's the problem. So we have to use one more annotation here, which is request body. So if you have to mention, hey, I'm sending something from the body, accept it. Okay. So we have to explain everything to Spring Framework. Okay, let's try now. Let's send this data again because this time it will use another ID. Run. Oh, sorry, we have to send a post request. In fact, where is my history here? I'm using Postman for a long time. Yeah, here. So let me use a post request with the same body. Send. Nothing went wrong here. Let me use the GET request. Send. Go back. Yeah, can you see that? We got it. So we got pen, a white table, and everything. Is this making sense? Oh, that's great. Okay, now I want to show you one more thing about Lombok, right? How do you integrate Lombok here? Okay, and now it's time for Lombok. Let's go to Lombok. Lombok, how do we integrate that? We have already added the Lombok part in the XML. And where do we want to use it? I want to use it for the product. If you look at the product class, there are so many things here, right? What you can do is, for this particular variables, I don't want to create getters and setters. You can skip the entire part from here, even toString. You can say I don't want to write it. It makes your code so lengthy, right? So what you can do is you can just go on top of your class and say data, and that's it. It will auto-generate the getter setters for you. So basically, Lombok is used to reduce the number of lines of code you write in a class. And again, you will find the link for the Lombok in description. Okay, so thank you so much, everyone. See you in the next session. Hit that like button before you leave.